Now, the RBA is one of the major economic bodies overseeing economic activity in Australia. So the RBA, being the Reserve Bank of Australia, has many different roles. And apart from conducting monetary policy, it can do many other things as well. That's what we're going to look at in this video. We're going to look at the roles, or the many different roles of the RBA. So the RBA's main responsibility, so this is their main goal, responsibility, is a monetary policy. And as we know, monetary policy is an aggregate demand management policy using interest rates to affect aggregate demand in the economy. So these policy decisions are made by the RBA with the objective of domestic economic stability. So what the RBA aims to do primarily is to achieve three goals. One, which is full employment. Secondly, which is strong growth, also seen in the RBA's ledger as the economic welfare and prosperity of the Australian people. And finally, their major goal, which is low inflation over the medium term. And the medium term can be very subjective. It is usually around 7 to 10 years. So they want to achieve this goal of low inflation, which is around 2 to 3% increases in CPI on average over the course of the medium term. So that's the main responsibility of the RBA, is to conduct monetary policy so that domestic economic stability is achieved. And many people know that this is one of the main responsibilities or roles of the RBA. But what many people don't realize is that the RBA has many more roles apart from monetary policy. The other major roles include maintaining financial system stability. Maintaining the financial system stability. So we know that in Greece and in America during the GFC, the financial system became unstable and it became very risky to invest in these nations. So what the RBA does is it wants to minimize risk. And risk can come from all sorts of factors, but primarily this idea of liquidity risk of banks. So because in Australia the banks are interconnected, because say NAB owes Westpac and Westpac owes Commonwealth, Commonwealth owes ANZ and ANZ owes NAB, for example. If one bank in that chain, so NAB, ANZ, Commonwealth Bank, Westpac, if one bank in that chain defaults and says, okay, so I can't, say ANZ defaults for example, and they can't pay off its debt to the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, then the Commonwealth Bank of Australia can't pay off its debt to Westpac, and Westpac can't pay off its debt to NAB, and therefore the financial system collapses. So what the RBA does is that it has to ensure that the financial system is stable, and so it does this through maintaining sufficient funds in the banks or in the authorized deposit taking institutions, exchange, settlement accounts. So if these exchange settlement accounts become negative, these banks will have to pay a very large fine, and the RBA has to maintain that at all times these exchange settlement accounts are positive so that the bank could meet any financial obligation coming in or that could pop up in the next financial day. And what it also does to help keep this financial system stability is that it also lends or sells repurchase agreements. So these are very, very short-term loans to banks so that they meet liquidity requirements. That's the second major role of the RBA. And this is very highly correlated to the promotion of safety as well as efficiency of the payment system. So these banks undergo what is called this net deferred settlement scheme. So unless these banks are trading very large amounts, which would then be conducted under the real-time gross settlement scheme, or the RTGS, these banks would actually settle their amounts at the end of the financial day, so that they only conduct one transaction instead of many hundreds of thousands during the financial day. So say ANZ owes Commonwealth Bank $100 million, but Commonwealth Bank of Australia owes ANZ $200 million. At the end of the financial day, instead of ANZ paying Commonwealth $100 million and then Commonwealth paying ANZ $200 million, Commonwealth Bank would then, at the end of the day, only pay ANZ $100 million. And that is a more effective system than, say, ANZ paying Commonwealth and then Commonwealth paying more back to ANZ. And you can imagine if this actually increases to a very large volume, say ANZ customers owe Commonwealth, the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, a couple of $100 million, and Commonwealth Bank customers again owe ANZ a couple of $100 million, then these transactions will pile up, and then unless it is not net deferred until the end of the business day, then this would culminate in a very large amount of settlement, which would then compromise the efficiency of the payment system. So what the RBA does is that it conducts this net deferred settlement scheme so that the payment system is both safe, so that risk is minimized, and as well as efficient. Some minor goals or minor responsibilities the RBA actually has include also, I'm just going to write it up here, include also the management of foreign reserves. And foreign reserves are simply currency or foreign currency that the RBA has from, say, USA, China, Thailand, etc. And again, the RBA issues money, or the Australian dollar, and finally it acts as the bank to the, just put it here, federal government. So there are 5 major goals or 5 major responsibilities of the RBA. 1, their main responsibility, which is monetary policy. 2, which is to maintain the stability of the financial system. 3, the promotion of safety and efficiency of the payment system. 4, to manage the country's foreign reserves or foreign currencies. 5, to issue money. And 6, to act as the banker or the bank to the federal government, so that the federal government could conduct its budgetary policy.